In this video, we'll make a chrome bunny wine stopper using Rhino's SUBD toolset that will look like this. I'll say at the outset here that this video is not going to cover all the basics of how to use the SUBD modeling tool package. So if you have not yet watched this video, Intro to SUBD Geometry, I encourage you to check this out on YouTube. It will help you to understand some of the basic methods for doing sub-selections and things like that. So let's go ahead and jump in. I've made a new Rhino file, and I'm going to go into the perspective viewport, and I'll picture my visual references, which you can download from our Rhino modeling exercises document. And we'll just draw this first one in. I'll right-click to repeat that same command. And let's bring the third one in too. Okay. And we'll stand these all up at once, just like that. I want to set this one up so that I'll be able to see it from the right viewport. Let me see if this is correct. Yeah, that looks right. So now we want to turn this one too. And let's just roughly check and make sure that they're approximately the same height. That looks pretty good. And we'll just keep this other image off to the side so we can glance at it if we need to see a 3/4 view of the model. And I'm going to go ahead and trim these images down some. Let me scoot this over a little bit, just like that. And we'll go to the front viewport, and I'm going to make myself a rectangle, about like that. And we'll use this to trim the image. Okay, and I'll delete that curve while it's still selected. And let me go to the front viewport, or the right viewport rather, and we'll make another one and do the same thing to this image. Let's scoot these up some. And we'll put this one so that it's more centered on the axis, like that. And scoot it back. That looks pretty good. All right, so let's get started with actually adding in our SUBD parts. But actually, before we do that, let's take these images and change object layer. We'll call this Pix, and we'll lock this layer so that we don't accidentally select the images as we're working. And now let's go into the right viewport, and we'll open up our SUBD panel. I'll make a sphere. And we'll take this sphere and duplicate it. I'm gonna rotate this just a little bit so that we have a box roughly in the position where the nose will be. I think this will make it easier later on when we add the nose in. Let's scale this out a little bit. Actually, let me undo that. I want to just stretch it a bit first. And then we'll scale this down some, about like that. Yeah, I think that's fine. Let's take these faces here and move them down just a little bit, just so that, again, so that we have a box that kind of is roughly in alignment with that nose. Move some of this stuff up a little bit. Okay, and now let's go and bridge the faces between the body and the head. I'm going to turn this onto shaded mode. And now we will run the bridge command, which is here. And the first set of faces is up here. We want that one, this one, and this one. Okay, and I'll press enter or right click so that we can go on to the second set of faces. That, and that. And then we'll press enter or right click and just make sure that things aren't tangled up. It looks fine. So we'll click OK. All right, and let's go back into the right viewport. And actually, before I even get into modifying these things, let me go ahead and add symmetry to the model. That'll make everything that follows a little bit easier. So we will come up to, where is it? Reflect SUBD object. We'll click on that button. And this is the object we want to apply the symmetry to. And the start of the reflection plane, I have in my O snaps, I have vertex checked. So if I hold the Alt key, it will temporarily turn my O snaps on, and it will allow me to select that vertex that is on the line of symmetry. And now I'm going to hold Shift to turn ortho on and click out here. And now the point on the side we want to keep, I'll just click over here. All right. So now, if we go back to the right viewport, it looks like we don't have enough rings here to actually get this to do what we want. Let me select this entire ring by double clicking, and yeah, well, actually that doesn't look too bad. Let me turn it on ghosted mode so that we can see better what we're doing. No, that's not going to work. We need another ring. So let's select this entire ring, and then we'll come up to insert SUBD edge ring. I'm going to right click. Oh, I'm sorry. We need a loop, actually, not a ring. So we'll put this about here, and we'll just have a little bit more control over getting the curvature to match the reference images with that additional one in place. I like to look at it in this view too, in box mode. It gives me a better understanding, I think, of what's going on with the topology. I'll make a couple of adjustments to it this way. Now let's go into the front viewport and just see if the width matches the reference images. It looks like we need to make some bigger adjustments. Let's go back in here. Let's see. Just shift this over. And we need to make it a little bit taller too. Oh, that didn't work out too well. It no longer has that nice spherical kind of appearance. Maybe we should make it a couple of adjustments from the side view. Let's see what happens here. There we go. That looks better. That looks pretty close. I think that's good. So now let's go into the, let's see, I guess we'll do it in perspective. We'll add a sphere that will turn into the ears for the bunny. So I'm going to hold Alt to snap to this vertex just so I can get the ears to be roughly in the right place. Okay. And then we'll make this really long. I think what we should do at the end is select all these faces and then scale one-dimensionally to flatten this out. Let's do the same thing at the bottom. We'll take this all up, select those faces, scale this one-dimensionally. And now let's lower this down to be roughly in the right spot, and we'll go into the right viewport and rotate these back. Let's go into the front viewport and rotate them over. And I'm going to scale one-dimensionally to make them a bit wider. And let's do that again, but I'm going to actually type in scale 1D so that I can keep these points in the same place. We'll just bring that up. That looks pretty decent. Let's go into the right viewport. And we want the entire ear to curve back in space. So let's grab that ring and move everything back like that. And one other thing we want to do is add a concave surface to the center of the ear. So we'll grab this and scoot this back. And let's mirror this ear to the other side. But actually, before we do this, let's turn on history so that if we make any adjustments to this ear later on, it will reflect onto the other side. So I'll click on history, record yes, update yes, lock yes, broken history. We'll just make everything yes and press enter. And now let's do mirror. And we'll mirror across the same plane like that. So now if we change this ear, it'll update the other. Now let's add a nose to the bunny. So we will come down and select, let's go back to our SUBD panel. And in this case, we want to bevel the mesh. So let's select that. And we need to select all of the edges around where the nose is going to be and press enter or right click. And what this is going to do is give us an inset face. The nose is going to be way too big when we first extrude it, but that's okay. We'll make it work. I'm going to bring this down and then I'll hold control to make our extrusion. And let's select this whole ring and let's select these center edges as well so that we can make a big change to the size of the nose. We'll go into the front viewport. About like that. We'll go into the right viewport. And I'll hold shift so that we can do a 3D uniform scaling of the nose. And it looks like in the same way that we didn't have enough topology to make the neck correctly, we need to add another ring here to give a crisper nose. I'm going to select this ring and we'll go up to this button and we will right click on it. I think that looks pretty good. We'll click to go ahead and add that in. And let's see what it looks like in perspective. So now it's too small. Let's make it bigger. Now let's add a tail on the back in the same basic way. So we'll go to Bevel Mesh or SUBD, and we'll select these edges here. And we'll drag in about to here. Now we'll select both of these faces and we'll drag out and then hold control and let go of the mouse button. And I think now we need to scale this whole thing in some. So squish that in about like that. Let's go to the right viewport. Now that we've organized the points and edges some, we can add another ring. So we'll select that entire existing ring and we'll go up to right click on this button. That looks pretty good. And we can scale this down some, I think. Let's take a look at it in the right viewport. It's actually looking pretty close. Yeah, I think we'll go with that. Okay, so let's go back up to perspective and just take one last look at it. You could probably stand to make it a little bit thinner, but we'll move on for the sake of efficiency. Let's add in some feet too. I think I'm going to do these as a separate additional SUBD object instead of trying to extrude out, or instead of trying to bevel the mesh. I think that we're just based on some tests I was doing before, we're going to get some weird results because of trying to do this right next to the line of symmetry. So we will create a SUBD box. I'm going to hold Alt to snap right here. That's more faces than I wanted. Let me try it again. I just want to see if it's going to give me some options at some point of how many. Oh, here we go. So let's make, for the X count, let's just do 2. 2. For Y, we'll do 2. And for Z, we'll do 2. Okay. Now what I want to do is actually turn this to be rotated about 45 degrees. And then we're going to scale this up. And we're going to push it back into the body. And I think that we actually don't need this ring, so let's get rid of it. I'll just push delete. And I'm trying to grab, there we go. I want all of these faces on the bottom, and I'm going to scale them up uniformly. I can also see, looking at the foot from this angle, that we don't have quite enough faces to get that nice crisp point that we're looking for. So let's take the whole thing and subdivide it with this button here. And now let's see what happens if we pull that face forward some. That's better. We could even, if we take this face and make it smaller, I think that should help to give us a crisper point there. That's pretty good. Go back into the front viewport. Why does mine look so different from the one that is on the body? It might be because we need to rotate it in some. So let me go to, I like the position of the front of the foot. I just want to rotate all this stuff back. So I'm going to use the rotate command, and we'll just do this. Let's see how that looks. That's closer. Maybe we also need to make the body a little bit wider. There we go. I think that looks good. Okay, we'll take this and mirror it over to the other side like we did with the ears. And now let's add the base to the whole thing. So we'll go to the right viewport, and let's just hide everything for a second. And we'll go to back to our standard panel here. We'll make a polyline, which let's make it start about here. And it'll come up to there. And then we'll have this go up into the body. Now let's add a couple of rings, a couple of circles that can serve as the silicone rings that will run around to keep the wine from leaking out. Okay, and then we'll take this whole thing and revolve it. Let's go into perspective so that we can actually see what it's doing. And you can actually click and then use ortho to click to make that full revolution, or you can just click up top on full circle. And let's just check the scale of it. It looks a little bit too big right now. I'm going to make it a little bit taller. And I think that looks pretty good. One change that I want to make to it, though, before we bring the body back is I want to... Oh, it's not letting me move it because I have history turned on. Let me turn history off. How do we just remove this from history? Lock, yes. We try lock, no, and see if... Okay. There we go. So now we can move that forward a little bit, and I want to fillet this this edge here and the one at the bottom to give a smoother transition. So the first curve of the fillet is there. Oh, I'm sorry, I ran the wrong command. We want to do fillet edge. That one and this one. And let's set all. Radius for handles. I don't know. Let's try 0.1 and see how that looks. That's a bit extreme. I'm going to click on link handles so that I can grab this one and just drag it down some. It'll adjust the other one too. When I do that. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, we'll press enter to go ahead and apply that change. And now let's show the bunny up top. Okay, and let's go ahead and render an image. So we can hide our visual references. And I'm going to go to the front viewport. And I'm going to make a sweep. We'll use this for just making our photorealistic image. I'm going to position the sweep so that it is below the bunny's foot. And I'm just doing this with a polycurve. I'm going to drag back like that, and I'll click a couple times, and then just make this go up really high. That looks pretty decent, but I want a better curve here. I'm going to select this and press F10. Yeah, that's about right. Move this one back some. That looks pretty decent. So let's press F11 to turn off the points. We'll go back into perspective. And then we'll extrude it by grabbing this curve, drag it across, hold Control, and let go of the left mouse button. So now we have 3 different materials. So I'm going to make a new layer. We'll call this Chrome. I'll press Tab to make a new layer. We'll call this Silicone. I'll press Tab, and then we'll call this last one Sweep. Okay, so we'll take Sweep and put it on this layer. We'll take the chrome stuff and put it here on chrome. And then we'll grab the silicone and put it on the other layer. Now let's go to the material for chrome and change this to metal. Okay, we'll just go with the default. For silicone, we'll change this to plastic. And I'm just going to adjust the clarity a little bit. And for the sweep, let's just make this gray. Plaster. We'll keep it plaster. Oh, right. There it is. We'll change the color. We'll just make this a nice, even middle gray. You can see now that we've turned it on render mode that we have a good kind of shiny display of the bunny, but not so much of the wine stopper part on the bottom. And that's actually because of the environment that we're in. Let's change the environment to something that has some more visual information. So if we go down under lighting, where it says use custom environment. So click on the triangle to use a new environment, and we'll import from the environment library. And let's go with Blur Loft. I think that one works well. I tried it before, if I'm not mistaken. Let's also set the backdrop to use that same image. So we'll go to Blur Loft there, and that looks much better. Let me ZS to put this in the center. And just so that you can see what the sweep is doing, if we take this and hide it, it gives us this infinite space with a white background. This can be okay too, but I like how the sweep has a little bit more of a, kind of a gradient as it goes back in space. Now, one final thing you'll notice about the model is that we have this bold red line. We could easily get rid of this if we want by selecting our SUBD object and converting it to NURBS. So if we go up to the top panel and click on Convert Object to NURBS, delete, yes. Okay. And so now the symmetry is gone, and that red line went with it. And this concludes our tutorial on how to make the SUBD bunny in Rhino.